Welcome back, everyone. Today we're going deep into the world of capital controls.
Ooh, capital controls.
Yeah, you know those financial tools countries use to kind of
Right.
manage how money flows across their borders?
Yeah.
We got a pretty intense paper sent in by a listener.
Oh, nice.
It's called Are Capital Controls Countercyclical?
Catchy.
By Fernandez and others, published in the Journal of Monetary Economics.
Serious stuff.
Not exactly beach reading, I'll admit,
No.
but that's why we do the deep dive, right?
Absolutely. Break it down.
So the thing about capital controls that's always interesting,
Okay.
they get talked of as this way to stabilize economies.
Right. Especially when things get shaky.
Exactly. Like after '08, everyone was like, capital controls, they'll prevent the next crash.
Yeah, the idea being you use them to smooth things out.
Right. Tighten them when things are booming, loosen them when things are busting.
Countercyclical, as they say.
But does that actually happen in the real world? I mean,
That's the question, isn't it? Theory versus practice.
that's what this paper is all about.
Getting into the nitty-gritty.
Okay, so before we get lost in the data,
Sure.
can we just define capital controls? Plain English, please?
Yes. Good point.
I think that term makes a lot of people's eyes glaze over.
Well, basically, they're measures that governments take
Okay?
to limit how fast money flows in or out of their country.
So kind of like speed bumps for money.
Sort of. More like valves.
Valves.
You know, to control the flow of capital across borders.
Okay, I can kind of picture that.
Good.
But what are some real-life examples of these valves? What can governments actually do?
Oh, lots of things.
What?
One common one is restricting buying foreign stocks.
So I can't just buy Apple shares willy-nilly.
Maybe not willy-nilly. They might limit how much foreign currency you can swap
Uh-huh.
or make you get approval for certain investments.
Interesting.
Another one, limiting how much money you can take out.
So if I win the lottery and want to move to a tropical island.
There might be rules, yes.
Huh.
Or companies moving profits around.
Oh, I see.
And then there's taxes, of
Yeah.
course, specific financial stuff like sending money overseas.
So it gets expensive to move your money around
Sometimes, yes. That's the idea.
to prevent those huge floods of cash in or out.
Right, which can really mess with a country's system.
Makes sense. Keep things stable.
Exactly.
So this paper, with its 78 countries over 16 years,
Ambitious, right.
they wanted to see if countries use these tools strategically.
Yes, the big question.
Tighten up during good times, loosen up during bad times.
Using them to manage the economy.
That's the counter-cyclical idea we keep hearing about.
Right.
Okay, so massive data set, clear goal.
Yep.
What do they actually find?
Well, this is where things get interesting.
Hit me with it.
They went in expecting to see this countercyclical pattern.
You know, countries being all smart and strategic,
Yeah.
using these controls to smooth out their economies.
But the data had other ideas.
Oh, go leave me hanging.
Turns out capital controls were remarkably acyclical,
Acyclical.
meaning booms and busts didn't really affect whether countries tightened or loosened these things.
Wait, so they're saying countries aren't using them as a stabilization tool.
That's what the data suggests.
That's wild. I thought that was like Econ 101.
It's a surprising finding, no doubt.
No kidding. So what's going on then? Why aren't they doing what the theory says they should be doing?
Lots of possible explanations.
Okay, I'm all ears. Lay it on me.
So the researchers, they didn't just stop at this acyclical thing.
Right, they wanted to dig deeper.
Yeah, they were like, okay, let's debunk some theories.
Myth-busting time.
Exactly. So one big idea out there
Okay.
is that developing economies,
Right.
the ones more vulnerable to like sudden money movements,
Yeah, makes sense.
they'd be the ones using capital controls countercyclically.
Because they got more to lose if things get crazy.
Right, like got to keep things stable.
Makes sense.
But the data, no,
Oh, really?
developing economies no more likely to do it than developed ones.
Huh. Interesting.
So theory number one, busted.
All right, what's next?
Another theory,
Hit me.
countries with fixed exchange rates.
Oh, right.
They'd be more into the counter-cyclical thing, supposedly.
Can you remind me what's a fixed exchange rate again?
Sure, it's when a country pegs their currency to another one.
Like to the US dollar or something?
Exactly, can make their exports cheaper.
Right, but then they got to manage their money carefully.
Yeah, to maintain that peg.
That's where capital controls come in, right?
Potentially, yeah.
So if there's a boom, lots of money flowing in,
They might use controls to, like, slow it down.
otherwise their currency goes up, messes with the peg,
Exactly.
and during a bust, they loosen up to encourage investment.
Stimulate growth.
Sounds logical.
In theory, yeah. Fixed exchange rates and capital controls, good buddies.
But,
The data, not really buying it.
again,
No clear pattern there either.
wow, 2 theories down.
And one more to go.
Lay it on me.
Countries with lots of debt
Okay,
makes them vulnerable, right?
big time.
So you'd think they'd be extra cautious with capital flows,
Managing that risk?
using those counter-cyclical controls.
Yeah, sounds sensible.
Data says, nope,
Seriously.
no clear connection there either.
Okay, so it's like Textbook economics versus the messy real world.
That's it in a nutshell.
All these assumptions about capital controls just not holding up.
Big disconnect.
So the question is if those theories are wrong.
Why? Why aren't countries doing what seems logical?
Yeah, what's the missing piece here?
Well, they decided to look at a specific case.
Okay, Brazil, huh? Always doing their own thing.
Right. So, back in '08,
Yeah.
Brazil famously used capital controls during the crisis.
They did, kind of went against the grain there.
Yeah, so the researchers looked at that closely,
Interesting.
and they found this strong link.
Between.
Brazil's capital controls, specifically taxes on international stuff,
Okay.
and their economic cycle at the time.
So when the economy was good, taxes were lower.
Right, and when things slowed down, taxes went up.
Boom, bust, they were adjusting those controls.
Seems like they were using them counter-cyclically.
Textbook example, finally.
Right, but here's the thing. Brazil, pretty much the only one doing it.
An outlier.
Exactly. Most other countries didn't follow that pattern.
So the mystery deepens.
Right. Theory says one thing, but in practice,
Most countries are doing something else entirely.
big disconnect.
So why? Why aren't policymakers all over this counter-cyclical tool?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm dying to know. What do the researchers say?
They had some ideas.
Oh, well, here.
One possibility, maybe the theory itself is missing something.
Like a piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, it looks good on paper, but...
The real world is messier.
Exactly. Economists might not be capturing all the nuance.
All those messy human factors.
Right. Political pressures, practical limitations.
So it's not just about economics. There's politics, too.
Absolutely.
Like what? Give me an example.
Well, think about it. Imposing capital controls can be controversial.
How so?
People see it as government meddling.
Oh, right. Interfering with the free market.
Exactly. Limits individual freedom, some might say.
So even if it's good for the economy overall,
Politicians might hesitate.
because it's unpopular,
Right. They got to think about votes.
makes sense. So it's not just about economic theory.
Nope. Real-world politics matter.
What else? What other factors could be at play?
Another one, institutional capacity.
Meaning?
Does the country even have the ability to implement these controls properly?
Ah, so it's not just about passing a law.
No, you need the expertise, the infrastructure.
The people who know how to make it work.
Exactly. Some countries might just not be equipped.
Right. They might lack the resources, the know-how.
Exactly. So even if they want to use controls,
They might not be able to do it effectively.
big challenge.
This is fascinating stuff.
Isn't it? And there's more.
Keep going. I'm hooked.
Then you have the practical side of things, like
Right.
actually predicting economic cycles. Not easy.
Right. It's not like we have a crystal ball.
Nope. Identifying a boom in real time, figuring out how to intervene.
That's tough. And risky too, right?
Oh, yeah. Get it one, you could make things worse.
Yike. So you got to be really careful.
Absolutely. Timing is everything.
So we've got the politics, the institutions, the forecasting challenges.
Anything else?
What else did the researchers come up with?
Oh, this is a good one.
Okay, I'm ready.
Sometimes capital controls aren't even about the economy.
What?
They're used for other goals.
Like what?
Protecting local industries, promoting specific investment.
So the timing might be about those goals.
Exactly. Not about smoothing out the economic cycle.
Huh. Never thought of it that way.
It's a whole different game then.
Wow, my mind is blown.
Right. Capital controls, they're not just about economics.
So much more going on.
Yeah, political battles, strategic maneuvering,
This is way more complex than I ever realized.
the world of finance, always full of surprises.
Okay, so after all this, what's the big takeaway?
I think the main point is the relationship between capital controls and the economy. It's messy.
Not as simple as the textbooks make it seem.
No way. There's layers to this onion.
So we got to be careful about jumping to conclusions.
Exactly. It's not just about boom, tighten controls, bust, loosen them.
Right, there's all these other factors at play.
And to really understand it, you need to look beyond just economics.
Politics, institutions, the whole picture.
That's where it gets interesting.
It's kind of crazy, right? We think policymakers have it all figured out.
Yeah, like they've got this playbook.
But this paper's saying not so fast.
It's more like they're figuring it out as they go along.
So what does that mean for, like, regular people trying to understand the global economy?
Well, I think the big lesson is don't believe the hype.
The hype.
Yeah, when you hear, oh, this country's doing X because their economy's overheating.
Right, like it's a simple cause and effect.
Exactly. That's when you got to start asking questions.
Like what kinds of questions?
First off, politics, always politics.
Okay.
What's going on domestically? What pressures are on the government?
Ah, so like, are there powerful groups pushing for these controls?
Could be, or maybe other policy goals are in the mix.
So the capital controls are just a means to an end.
Maybe. You got to look beyond the surface, connect the dots.
And institutions too, right?
Oh, absolutely. Does the country even have the infrastructure to make these controls work?
The manpower, the expertise.
Exactly. That all matters.
It's like you can't just look at the chessboard, got to understand the players.
Perfect analogy, their motivations, the whole game.
Man, this has been eye-opening.
Glad you enjoyed it.
I feel like I finally get how complex this stuff really is.
It's more than just numbers and theories.
So if you were advising a country on this, what's the top tip?
Honestly, don't think of capital controls as a cure-all.
Like a magic wand?
Yeah, they're a tool, but a complicated one.
With risks, too, not just benefits.
Right, and you got to use them strategically based on the situation.
No one-size-fits-all approach.
Nope, what works in one place might backfire in another.
Well, there you have it, folks. Capital controls.
Not so simple, huh?
More like a tangled web.
Yeah, economics, politics, all mixed up.
Makes you think, right?
Definitely.
So, last question for our listeners, something to ponder.
Okay, hit me.
Imagine you're in charge of a country facing tough economic times. Would you use capital controls?
Ooh, that's a tough one.
It is, and what factors would you consider?
Lot to think about there.
No easy answers.
But hopefully this deep dive has given everyone some food for thought.
Some tools to analyze the world around us.
That's what we aim for.
And that's a wrap on our capital controls exploration.
Thanks for having me.
It's been a pleasure. Don't forget to check out the show notes.
Lots of good stuff there.
The full paper, other articles. Keep learning.
Always.
Until next time, keep those brains buzzing.